and a lot of labels and blogs. Like us, some of these rappers they do shows, so I go to the shows and I record the shows and I put it together. Just like recently, I had gone on tour with Mexican OT, and so it's just one of those things that I do. I,
Do you also do content creation?
yes,
And what about photography?
yes,
The date of this incident, October 27th, 2024, is that what you were doing in San
yes.
Antonio?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about that. Well, what was the plan to do here in San Antonio?
Eat that night, and we were supposed to go to like a hibachi place, and Mr. Paul he wanted me to go ahead and record. It's hibachi. It looks cool. Everybody's cooking. Experiencing a little shrimp, and so that's what we're gonna do. And afterwards, we're gonna have his girlfriend drive down here. Like I said, San Antonio is a very beautiful city, so we're gonna be around the boardwalk, just taking photography, or of course Halloween. His girlfriend was a model at the time, and probably still is. But at the time, we are gonna do a Halloween shoot for his girlfriend, and just besides that, we're gonna go out to eat, record the vlog, and of course record the photography shoot.
So I'm gonna play you I'm sorry, States Exhibit 4. I'm gonna start it at 1:19:11.
So just took us. I had they asked me to drive a car, right? Just came car. They said we drove from Houston and we landed there. I took a nap right there.
Stopping at 1:19:28. So Felipe, what did you mean by it was supposed to be a clean car?
Meaning that there wasn't supposed to be any drugs in the car, like personal use, like because I don't smoke and I don't like being in a car full of smoke, which they usually call hot box. And I don't like that because it gets very hard for me to breathe because I'm a big person already. So it's been basically multiple occasions where I've been at a video shoot and there's been a lot of smoke and I ended up throwing up. So I just personally don't even like to be around that smell or even type of smoke.
Okay, so when you get the car, whose car is it?
This is Paul's car.
Okay. And where is Paul at this time?
Paul is in the other vehicle with the other gentleman in the Cadillac, and that's the reason that he was riding with him because we are already heading towards the restaurant, and he was like, you know what, we're gonna smoke. I know that you don't smoke, so go ahead and ride another car
Okay, and so you get in the other car with who?
with the girl that she was gonna be driving.
And this girl, did you know her name?
Honestly, I hadn't even met that chick like 4 hours or 5 hours prior to the event.
Okay, and when you get in the car with her, does she enter the car at first with anything?
No, she did not.
Did she eventually go back into the house to get something?
Yes, she went to go grab that bag that they have in evidence.
Okay, and had you seen that bag before?
No, I have not.
And when she gets in the vehicle, what did she do with the bag?
She put it in the back seat. And honestly, I thought it was her personal belongings because I hadn't seen this bag. And like I said, I only had met this girl 4 hours prior, about 4 or 5 hours prior to the event.
And the bag, why did you think it was personal belongings?
Because it's the bag that I didn't originally, we didn't have in the car when we came here. So I was just like, hey, it's her personal belongings.
Okay, and so then when she gets in the car with the bag, do you ask her about it?
No, really, because I didn't really question it. I didn't really question it because I was like, well, she probably has her makeup, her bag, like I said, we're already ready to go to go eat and then go do a photography shoot.
So then You're saying that the Cadillac drove off and a Paul and the other guy drove off in a Cadillac, right?
Yes,
And then it was you and the girl, and from there you were supposed to go to a restaurant.
yes.
Okay, and what do you recall happening when you're driving with the female?
I remember just taking off, and then I laid my seat back because I said, I don't know how to say this yet, but I had fell asleep at the house because whenever I got in there, I was very tired of traveling. I had just got off tour with that Mexican tea and then 1501 for the Chapo, you know. So I literally just fell asleep because I'm like, you know what? Let me rest before I start shooting because I didn't want to shoot in it very tired. You know, who likes to go to work tired, you know? So I rested, and then by the time I woke up, they woke me up and they were like, "Hey, we're ready to go. We're gonna go eat." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. Let's go eat." And I got in the car. She got in the car, and then she went back inside the house, grabbed the bag, put it in the back, and we took off.
What happened after that?
Um, like I said, I put my seat back, and I was been just chilling, and then next thing you know, I see lights lights, and then I'm like, I thought it was a car behind us, thinking that it was the Cadillac. I'm like, oh well, they're gonna get pulled over, and so she continues, she continues to go, and next thing you know, we get to the light, and there's vehicles in front of us. Of course, there's a red light. When she decides to go ahead and take the curve, and that's when I realized that there was something wrong. And then she starts going at a high, very high speed. And I'm arguing with her, telling her to stop the car. So I stop the car, like, why are you going so fast? And then she grabs the bag to the back seat, and she's just telling me, shut up, like, dude, like, you know, I guess I was annoying her with my questions. And she had this bag, and she tells me to throw it out. And when I throw it out, she starts to argue with me.
Judge, I'm
Argue.
gonna object as to him testifying to what the female is telling him as to hearsay.
Hearsay, Your Honor, goes to the his response, not for the truth of the matter asserted, but rather his response in the situation, and it goes to negate the mental state.
All right, any other response with regards to an objection defense?
It also goes to negate that he acted intentionally in this case, or that he had any type of free will in committing any
All right,
incident.
objection is sustained.
Okay, so you, at this point, what are you feeling when she's driving?
Scared. I'm feeling very scared because I've never really been in this predicament ever. So I was feeling very afraid and just confused.
What was her response, or what did she do in response to you telling her to stop or slow down?
She got agitated.
Okay, so is she the one who grabs the bag to tell you to throw it out?
Yes.
And how is she telling you?
Very rude and very loud and very, like I said, she's cussing me out a lot. And once I threw out the bag, it was nothing but me, her going back and forth, telling me that that's how.
Judge, I'm gonna object again as to the hearsay.
Sustained.
Okay, so then the next thing we saw from the video is that the car ends up crashing.
Yes.
And when the car crashes, what do you feel?
Afraid, and honestly, that's the most scared I've ever been. Um, I just thank God that I'm alive because He's giving me a second chance to life. Like I could have died that
I'm
night.
gonna object as to non-responsive.
Sustained.
Sorry.
Okay.
I could've- No, God could take my life.
Okay, and
Sustained.
are you feeling any type of pain at this point?
Just emotional pain, you know, from that night.
Well, when you get out of the vehicle, what do you do when you get out of the vehicle?
I just try to get out the vehicle just to make sure that I'm okay. And as soon as I get out the vehicle, that's when the police put their guns on me and just tell me to free to get down on the ground. Of course, they're very, very rude, calling me names. And I'm scared, you know.
Objection,
Sustained.
So Felipe, let's move on a little bit. So where the crash happened, you get out of the car. Do you try to flee or escape the police?
No.
Okay. And you wait for them to give you commands, is that correct? Once you've been able to follow their commands and get on the ground, how are you feeling physically?
Hurt.
Okay,
Feeling very hurt. I'm feeling very hurt, but you know when you get in the back of the evidence of which I have gone before, they are very expensive.
Objection, relevance, and
Sustained.
non-responsive.
oh, and are you thinking clearly at this point? Okay, and were you wearing your glasses at this point?
No, ma'am.
Where were they?
They were inside the vehicle. They have to go out of my face.
Can you see without your glasses?
No,
Okay. And did you indicate that to one of the officers that was helping you step away from the accident?
yes, I did. I told them that my glasses were inside and that I needed them. That they could please retrieve my glasses from the vehicle.
Did they?
No,
Did you ever get your glasses back that night at all?
no. I had to get my glasses when my mother bought them for 2 months without being. No,
Okay. Do you recall the initial officer asking what you were doing?
yes.
Do you recall what you told them?
I told them that I was in San Antonio to record a vlog, and then we were gonna go eat, and then we're gonna take some photos, and that's the only reason that I was in San Antonio.
Okay. Play defendants for at 119/28.
Whatever business they have going on, is their business, you know what I'm saying? And then when we're about to leave, they gave me a badge, it was under my seat. And
When you say that, I'm sorry to cut you off, man. When you say that, who's they?
you know,
What do they go by? What's
I
their
don't
name?
know, I just know one dude, and that's it, his name's Nate, I just know Nate,
Nate?
I just know Nate, yeah.
Which one is he? With tattoos or without
Yeah,
tattoos?
with tattoos,
Okay.
you know,
He's the one that has tattoos all over his
yeah,
face?
yeah, he's in the head, he's got my car gun. I was in San Antonio, and then just gonna stay over here, and then we're gonna go get some meat over there in Austin. When we have a clean slate, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, okay.
Did you owe him some fetty or what? You owe him some money?
No, I needed some extra bread money, you know what
So
I'm
you
saying?
should even keep it.
I don't know, but that was a discussion talk, we got to Austin, you know?
Mhm.
We're gonna go back to Austin.
Okay, stopped it at 120/22. So when you tell the officer we were supposed to go to Austin and then have a clean slate, what did you mean by that?
Meaning that our final trip to our videography and our blog, you know, taking pictures. Our final destination was gonna be Austin because that's where they stayed at. And we're gonna spend the night there before we went back to Houston, where I originally had my house is at, my house.
And what did you mean specifically by once we got there, like we'll have a clean slate?
Meaning that I don't know how many pictures I was gonna take or how long the session was gonna take. Usually I charge by how many pictures or depending how many hours we're out there. Or even where I'm gonna go shoot at. You know, sometimes I go to Dallas, sometimes I go to Oklahoma, you know, just depending how far the travel is. That's what I meant by
Objection,
clean slate.
non-responsive.
Sustained.
And so when you say I just needed some extra rent money, you were expecting to get the money from the shoot. Is that
Objection, leading.
Sustained.
where were you expecting to get the extra rent money that you referenced?
From the shoot because, like I said, this is how I only make my living. I don't have a 9 to 5, and I work for myself because I've been blessed to at least make enough money to pay my bills with this.
So did you have any discussions with these individuals about transporting any narcotics?
No,
Was there an agreement with them to transport or help them transport, even if it was in another car, any narcotics? And the narcotics that they are trying to link you with, the ones in the backpack. Did you know about those narcotics?
I did not.
Okay. Had you seen what was inside the bag?
No, ma'am.
And you said you didn't ask them.
I didn't. I didn't because I didn't think that Nate would put me in this predicament.
How do you feel he put you in this predicament?
Objection, speculation, calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
What do you mean by he putting you in this predicament?
Meaning that I allowed Nate to live in my house. And when I let him live in
Object,
my
I'm gonna object to relevance.
Overruled. You can answer.
I let Nate live in my house, and when he didn't have a job, when he didn't have nowhere to stay, and so I thought he would never put me in this predicament, meaning that you think that someone that's grateful for giving you a house or something like that will put you. in
I'm
this
gonna
type
object to
of-
non-responsiveness.
Sustained.
Okay, and then in the video, you tell the officer that none of the stuff in the bag has anything to do with you, correct?
Yes,
Okay, what did you mean by that?
but it means that none of this stuff had to do with me, like, I didn't have no acknowledgement what was inside the bag, and I didn't know what was inside the bag until I heard some officers talking about it outside the car vehicle.
What were they saying about it?
They were saying-
Objection calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Judge, this is important because it's not for the truth of the matter asserted that they did find the contraband, but rather his response, and it goes to provide context to why he's telling the officer about specific instances of items in this bag.
Sustained.
Okay, and so the officer tells you, he kind of cuts you off and he just tells you, well, actually, it does have something to do with you. Do you remember that?
Yes,
Okay. And then you responded to him, well, now it does because I threw the bag, correct?
yes,
Okay, but when you threw the bag, did you know what was in there?
no, I did not.
Okay, why did you throw it?
Because me and her were going back and arguing back and forth, and she was just being very rude, and so at that point, I'm like, fine, you know.
So,
That's why the bag didn't fly so far because I just didn't care about the bag, you know.
and when the officer's asking you whether you knew the contents and you say, I just know there was stuff inside, is it at this point that you're realizing that there
Yes.
is something in there?
Yes,
Okay. And then you told the officer probably pills, ice, on top of my head, that's all I know.
yes.
And why did you supply him with those specific items?
Because usually in the music industry, when rappers are talking about drugs, and now, especially nowadays,
I'm gonna object as to non-responsive, Judge.
All right, that objection will be overruled. You can answer.
like I said, nowadays, these days, these rappers in the music industry.
Well, Judge, I'm gonna object as to relevance as to rappers in the music industry.
All right, that'll be overruled. You can answer the question.
Like I was saying, these rappers these days, you guys hear it in the radio these days. All they talk about is sex, money, and drugs. And most of these drugs, throughout the years, they have become addicts. So most of these rappers either talk about, popping bars, they talk about, sipping lean, they talk about, smoking weed, and they just talk about things that are gonna give them a body high. So
So I'm gonna object as to non-responsive.
Sustained.
Felipe, what are bars?
bars will be, it really, I could say depends because you don't really understand what it is, like lyrically,
So the officer mutes for quite a bit of time when he speaks to you. And you've seen the video.
Yes,
Do you recall what he was talking to you? He said that he was talking to you about being a confidential informant. Was he talking to you about that when he muted?
no, man.
Did he offer you the opportunity to work with work as a confidential informant at all during that conversation?
No, ma'am.
What do you recall him telling you during that conversation?
Objection calls for hearsay.
I'm gonna overrule that objection.
Can you ask a question?
What do you recall him telling you during that muted part of the conversation?
He was just basically telling me that I'm gonna be the one that's gonna get charged for the drugs, and that how much time I'll be looking at,
Did he tell you anything else?
and basically just threatened me with just that, just like I said, just the fact that I was gonna give like 75 years, and that I'm the one that's gonna take the fall for it.
What did you say or do in response to that?
That's when I got very scared, and of course, hearing the fact that you can get incarcerated for 70, 75 years, that just gives a mental breakdown, and I was just very responsive and trying to get him to understand that those weren't my drugs, and
Okay, and so you were being honest with him?
yes, ma'am,
Did you think when you were speaking to him that he would help you?
yes.
How so?
I thought if I was just honest and being cooperative, that I'll be free, and I wouldn't be being charged with these drugs, these charges, because simply I was just there to do a videography job. And I thought that Nate would at least man up to the charges.
Did you think he would believe you that you honestly didn't know what was in the bag?
Yes,
And then a few days later, you actually contacted the detectives asking for help, right?
yes, because I was like, man, I already know that these detectives were trying to charge me with this, and I didn't know if there was a warrant to my arrest, so I was like, I need my cameras. In my cameras because this is the only way that I make a living is, and I don't have, like I said, I don't have a 9 to 5, and I was about to go back on tour, Mexican OT and Infinite Chapo, and that opportunity just got taken away.
So did you think at that point also that they were gonna help you?
Yeah, so I thought they were gonna give me my cameras, because that's the conversation that I had with Officer Ramirez, I wanna say. The dude that he was with the long hair.
I'm gonna object as to non-responsive. Judge.
All right, that'll be overruled. Ask your next question.
So Felipe, the warnings that we call in Texas, the Miranda warnings, that the officers read you about your right to remain silent and anything you say can be used against you. Did you understand those?
To a certain extent, I did not because of the car accident, and I was shocked, and I just didn't really understand what the surroundings of my situation.
And I think when this Detective Robles asked you whether or not you understood your rights, you began to tell him something, correct?
Kept like, like kind of ignoring it, like yeah, when you just hearing somebody talk, you're just like, yeah, okay. But reality, I was just looking around to soak in the scene that was going on around me. Because the lights, the police lights were going off everywhere, and just the fact that I didn't have my glasses, I wasn't really paying attention to that piece of paper.
Did you know that it was going to be used against you in court? What did you think you were doing by signing this paper?
Just helping them out because the detectives originally just showed me a paper and they were like, just sign this paper. Just tell me what's in the paper, just write it. And that's really about what I thought that paper was. Just me trying to help them out, trying to, let them get some information.
And when you said you had no knowledge of when the officers asked you to write the pill color and to write the amount of pills, you said you had no knowledge of that, right?
No knowledge.
Was that true?
Yes.
And why did you write down here weed?
Because that's the typical thing that rappers do, or any thing that's on the street. And that's the main thing that's out there, like, that from my knowledge, that people do.
Why did you write down here weed if when he asked you, you said maybe, I'll just put it in there?
Yeah, oh, because that's exactly what, at that moment was happening. He said, we, and I'm like, yeah, okay, let's just put that in there just in case.
Okay. Why would you do that?
Because I was trying to be very cooperative, you know, with them.
What your caregiver, Tammy Richardson, talked about in here the other day about you having dyslexia and having trouble kind of staying on task and understanding things. Is that true?
Yes, yes. I had to take a lot of classes as a young kid just to learn how to read properly. And when I discovered that I had dyslexia, they gave me a blue paper, like a blue sheet, or I guess that was my color. They have multiple colors that certain people with dyslexia they can read with, and I've been dyslexic since we discovered it. To be honest, you know, like I was dyslexic before. It's just not something that you just get out of nowhere, you just born with it.
Okay.
Um,
And is this your first interaction with law enforcement?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have any criminal history?
No, I don't have no criminal history in the States. I just born in the United States.
Pass the witness.
State.
Mr. Reyes, so it's your testimony that in the year of 2024, you did not have a 9 to 5 job, is that correct?
I did not.
Okay, and so you were doing content creating and photography to make a living, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now regarding Miss Tammy Richardson, isn't it true that before coming in here to testify for you, you hadn't seen her in over a year?
Yes.
Okay. And isn't it true that you discussed with Miss Richardson that regarding your Instagram page, your excuse for your Instagram page being spelled correctly is that it was done on a phone and it was done with autocorrect, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so moving on, you stated about the music culture and that you work with a lot of rappers, correct?
Yes.
All right. And so you mentioned Mexican OT, is that right?
Yes.
All right. And Mexican OT, he's a famous rapper right now. He's pretty popular, you would
Yes.
say. Okay, and he is an avid marijuana smoker, correct?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay, and he smokes marijuana at his shows.
Yes.
Okay, and you've worked those shows?
No.
No?
No.
And when you're around him, has he smoked marijuana in front of you?
Of course, yes.
Okay, so you're familiar with the odor of marijuana.
I do.
Okay.
But those shows are outside, and every time I had an interaction with him, it was mostly outside.
Okay. And so you stated that the weekend of the offense on October 27th, 2024, you were down here for photography, is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
And
And
yeah,
so-
a vlog.
And a what?
In a vlog, we were supposed to go out to eat that day, and we were supposed to record, and also too, if my lawyer would have been allowed to.
I'm gonna object as to non-responsive.
Sustain.
Please just answer the questions that I'm asking you.
Sorry.
Okay, so you stated that typically you work with rappers, right? When you do vlogs? Okay, and vlogs, are they like videos that are posted on YouTube?
Yes.
Okay,
And Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, any social medias.
okay, thank you for that clarification. And so the people that you came down here to shoot for, they weren't rappers, is that correct?
They were not,
Okay,
but like I said, I came to shoot a vlog for them, and also for his model girlfriend.
Okay, and so what was the content gonna be?
Like I was going out to eat, and then of course me taking pictures of the model, and I was gonna vlog it at the same time, but I'm taking pictures of her.
Okay, and so was the model and was the model the female that was in the Nissan with you?
No,
Okay, so there was no other female in the Nissan or the Cadillac, so where was this model?
she was in Austin. She was gonna make her way down here.
Okay, so she was gonna come to San Antonio from Austin,
Yes.
and then you were gonna drive up to Austin?
When we're done with the shoot, we're gonna spend the night there, and then drive back to Houston the next morning.
Okay. So on the weekend of October 27th, 2024, what day did you drive down to San Antonio from Houston?
So it was 27, so I wanna say that night. Yeah, I really wanna say that night we drove.
Okay, and when you arrived here in San Antonio, you went to the residence on Hidalgo Walk, is that correct?
Yes, so if that's what it says, yes, because I'm not from San Antonio, so I don't know the streets.
Okay.
Yes.
About what time did you arrive in San Antonio?
See, I would say it was like around 5 or 4 o'clock.
Okay. And so it's your testimony that you were asleep in the home on Hidalgo Walk
Yes,
until y'all left?
yes,
Okay, and so when you said in your statement, whatever business that they have going on, do you recall saying that?
yes,
Okay, and you mean the packaging of narcotics inside of the residence at Hidalgo Walk, correct?
yes.
Okay, and so you were aware of what they were doing inside that
No,
residence?
I did not. But when I meant what kind of business is like at that point, the officer already had told me that.
I'm gonna object as to non-responsive.
Sustain.
Just please answer the questions I'm asking you. Do you understand?
Yes,
Okay. Now, moving on, you said that you really don't like being in the presence of marijuana smoke or the odor of marijuana, is that correct?
yes,
Um. I'm gonna ask you to put these on, please. State's exhibit number 7, I believe. Can you go ahead and smell that for me?
I really don't wanna hold that because I don't, is it okay?
Which I'm gonna object to her asking him to take a whiff of that package. He's not even familiar with it. It's not been established that he's had any previous familiarity with that package.
With regard to him smelling the package, that objection will be sustained.
Okay, well, you're familiar with the odor of marijuana, correct?
I am familiar with that.
Okay, and you can smell it coming from this package, isn't that true?
Yes,
Okay. Now. You stated to the officer in the statement that the backpack was under your seat, but you've since changed your testimony to it was behind the female, is that correct?
yes,
Okay. And so you testified that when the officers initiated their red and blue lights, the female continued and took the curb onto Brady Boulevard, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, and your testimony was that you feel blessed because you weren't hurt in the car crash, is that correct?
yes.
But you're aware that other people. were,
Objection of
right?
relevancy.
Right, with regards to relevancy, that will be sustained.
And you stated that you only suffered emotional pain that night?
Objection of relevancy.
And he
Overruled.
testified to it.
That objection is overruled. You can answer the question.
Yes, but also too, I got physical pain. It wasn't just, I got PTSD from that night, but not only did I have a seatbelt trauma, so my stomach, it was, it was subject to the seatbelt being on me, and that's what the hospital records say. And the fact that my head got banged up because the car had got it really, it was a small vehicle and I'm a big guy.
Okay,
And
And
I
so
got
you
a
were
few
taken to the-
scratches right here too. I don't know if y'all can see, but I got a couple scratches still in my body that from that night because there was windows shatterings everywhere, and the windshield, of course, popped up from the front of the car.
and that's the car, because the car flew into the back of a home and flipped over, isn't that correct?
Yes, ma'am, but I didn't have control of the vehicle. I
Okay,
wasn't the one driving.
Thank you. And you were taken to the hospital, correct?
I was taken to the hospital when I got to booking.
Okay, and you were released from the hospital shortly thereafter, correct?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and there were no notations of you having a head injury, isn't that true?
I don't know so what my medical records say, ma'am. I don't understand that stuff. But if it was on medical records, I mean, I don't know if there is in there.
All right. Now, you stated regarding Nate, he was your friend, right?
He was, yes. he
And
was a good
you
friend.
provided him with a home in Houston, is that correct?
Yes, I let him stay at my house in my living room while he was getting himself back on his feet.
Okay,
But
and so he has no motive to make anything up about you, correct?
no, he doesn't.
Okay. And regarding the bars, that is Xanax, correct?
I remember by that it was just lyrical bars. That's something that.
Listen to the question. Bars is associated with Xanax, correct?
In the music industry, yes.
Okay. Now, you stated in your previous testimony that you thought that if you cooperated and signed the voluntary acknowledgement of the methamphetamine and the pills, that you would be let go, is that correct?
To my acknowledgement, whenever I signed that, I didn't have my glasses, so I did not see that the fact that methamphetamine was on top of the list. But since I was talking to the officers, and I was like, you know what, they were kind of guiding me to what's right on that piece of paper, because they were talking to me, they were like, oh, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and write that too.
Okay, but Detective Robles specifically asked you, do you agree that there was methamphetamine in the bag? And you said, yeah, you heard that, right?
Yes, because there were the officers outside of the vehicle in the police car talking about it, and
I'm gonna object as to non-responsive.
Sustained.
I'm gonna instruct you again to please listen to my question and answer it, okay?
yes.
Thank you. Okay, so it's your testimony and we see in the body worn cameras that you didn't have your glasses on that night, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and so if we look at the voluntary acknowledgement that you filled out, we can see your name right here, correct?
yes,
And so you were able to write that without your glasses, correct?
yes,
And it's spelled correctly, right?
yes,
Okay. And then moving on to the other things that you wrote, the pills, you were able to write that and spell it correctly, correct?
yes,
Same thing for weed,
yes,
same thing for blue red,
yes,
same thing for backpack,
yes.
same thing for toss it window,
Window was not spelled correctly, ma'am.
okay? And same thing for Nissan.
And Nissan is probably not spelled correctly, ma'am. That's a V.
Okay. Well, you're sure quite the speller in here.
Objection, Your Honor. What's the question?
What is your objection?
There's no question. It's,
All right,
council's
Mr.
testifying.
Sutton.
Now, you stated that the bag was not in the car when you came here, is that correct?
Yes,
So you drove a clean car down here. Which car was that? The Nissan or the Cadillac?
that was the Nissan because that's Paul's car.
Okay, and so you drove that car from Houston to San Antonio.
I didn't personally drive that car. It was Paul that was driving that car because Paul, I don't own a vehicle, so I have to get picked up from shoots and or I have to take Ubers. But since this was a very long drive, I had to. I'm not gonna take an Uber over here. I'm gonna drive the car.
So why did you state that you drove it from Houston?
Well, what I meant is that I was gonna say that we drove it over here, you know.
Okay,
But since I was in shock and everything, my responses that day went car like not 100%.
but in the video, you stated that it was just me, myself, and I to the detective. Do you recall that?
Like it's just me, myself, and I. Like I'm talking about myself. I'm not talking about them. When I'm talking to them and I'm telling them that that's not my stuff, I'm talking about me, myself, and I. I'm not involved in any criminal activities, man.
So that was your response when asked about driving the clean car. You said it was me, myself, and I.
But
So why
at the
would you say
time,
that?
at the time, I wasn't understanding what he was saying.
Okay, and you never told anyone that Paul drove down from Houston with you, correct?
No, I did. My parents and everybody knows that I don't have
I'm gonna
cars.
object as to non-responsive. Did you ever tell an officer that you drove down here with Paul? You didn't, right?
No, not at the
Okay,
time,
thank
because
you.
at the time that was irrelevant.
It was irrelevant at the
It was
time.
irrelevant because the girl was driving.
So when you're saying that you're so scared, you didn't think that that was relevant? Wouldn't everything be relevant
I
at
said
that
I
point?
was scared multiple times, man.
So my question is, if you
that timely disclosure of the jail calls actually violates several of Felipe's constitutional rights, namely his right to a fair trial, his due process rights, and his rights to the effective assistance of counsel, because attempting to review 14 jail calls during an hour recess is not sufficient time for us to essentially change what our defensive strategy is going to be and then give our client proper legal advice. And even if we did see that these were uploaded, they were uploaded this morning. The trial started at 8 a.m., which again is not enough time to review 14 jail calls if we had gotten notice that they were uploaded this morning. And we also didn't receive an updated discovery acknowledgement till 11:39, which, if we recall, is during the time of the break. And under Hardin versus State, the court used 3 factors to determine whether the state acted in bad faith when they failed to disclose evidence. The first factor was whether the defense can show that the state intended to deceive. We believe the state knew that, or Ms. Galloway knew that she's going to use these jail calls prior to this morning, waited to upload them until this morning, and then waited to see if we would advise Felipe to take the stand, and then chose to use those jail calls against him.
All right, so here's my first question. My first question is, were these jail calls made by your client?
Yes,
And were these jail calls made over the weekend?
yes. Friday and Saturday, which she would have had enough time to upload these prior to this morning. I think the untimely disclosure is that they waited until this morning.
All right, no, here's my question though. These were jail calls that were made over the weekend, is that correct?
Yes,
All right. Did you inform the state before 11:40 or whatever time it was? Did you inform the state you were going to call him as a witness?
yes, we did. We
No,
gave
no,
them
no.
notice prior to 11:40 this morning. Yes, we did.
No, we took a break and defense counsel informed the court and the state that they needed to approach because they needed to make a decision on whether or not your client would testify.
Judge,
Now,
he's
so here's
already
my-
testified. He's been on the stand this entire morning.
No, what I'm saying is, did the state know that your client was going to testify before today? That's either yes or no.
Yes, we said that we may call him as a witness.
No,
We said that
may.
on Friday.
Did the state know that you were going to call your client as a witness today? That's my question.
I'm sure
Not
that
maybe.
they had an inkling.
No, not a maybe. Did they know? Did you tell the state, hey, by the way, we're gonna call our client as a witness today?
No, Judge.
All right, so then the question becomes with regards to jail calls. If the jail calls were made over the weekend and the state is giving them to you today, then you have them today. And state, any other things you wish to address?
Judge, just not, I had no way of knowing whether they were gonna call the defendant or not. The calls were uploaded prior to the break that we took where they stated they were unsure whether they were gonna call him or not. They weren't something because it was concluded. These calls were made, between the dates of 5:30, 25 after we recessed from court. And so after 6:30 p.m. and then up until 6/1/2025, which was yesterday at 7 days. And so I did upload them as soon as practicable and it's for about 1 minute.
Judge,
Alright.
may I respond, please? I would like to finish making my argument. So the second factor under Hardin versus States, whether the state's notice left the defense adequate time to prepare, we did talk about how we were not given adequate time to prepare because, again, we were only given an hour to review jail calls, 14 jail calls. And then the last factor is whether the state freely provided the defense with information. Arguably, I don't think that they freely provided us with the information. We, as defense counsel, only get an email when discovery is uploaded. Oftentimes that disclosure is delayed, and it would have taken a minute for them to come up to us and tell us that they were going to use those jail calls. And then also, again, we didn't receive the updated discovery acknowledgement until 11:39 this morning.
But if you're not calling your client as a witness, then the jail calls will not be
Judge,
used.
we are under no obligation to have to inform them. Under 39.14, the
that you're
state is
calling-
obligated to inform us of whenever they are going to use evidence, which includes the state's witness
But
list.
didn't they upload the discovery? And he is
They
not,
uploaded-
obviously, your client is not on the state. Did you have him on your witness list?
No, I'm.
All right, so they would not have your client on their witness list. So this is what the court is going to do. The court is going to allow the state to continue with their cross-examination. Then I will give you all a break to review any more weekend jail calls that your client is alleged to have made.
Judge, then the motion's for mistrial at this point because there is
It's
information.
denied.
And I'm just putting this on the record for appeal purposes, Judge, to protect everybody. But there is information in this that would have essentially caused us to take a different approach to our defense, including calling our client as a witness. And this was a late delay, which was bad faith by the prosecutor. And so I don't know how it's conscionable that we're proceeding with this trial when there is essential information in there that would have caused us to go a different route with our defense strategies.
Oh.
Had we known that information, we would have been able to better prepare for our defense and redirected ourselves this morning. And they've essentially prevented us from doing that, from doing our job, from being effective assistances of counsel for Felipe Reyes, because we're just getting this information now.
All right, so.
And the damage is already done by us calling him to the
So
stand.
state, any of the jail calls that you're questioning this witness about, are those jail calls that were made before the weekend?
No.
All right, so what we're gonna do, your motion for a mistrial is denied. We're gonna bring the jury back in, state you can consider, continue your cross. We'll take a recess, and defense, you can look at and review more of the DVDs if you so choose.
Judge, and then I asked that the prosecutor not be able to, or she needs to correct her statements in front of the jury, because what the call actually says in reference to her question about, is that why you called me fat? What it actually states is he is trying to talk to Miss Tammy Richardson.
That's what that is for, that is for your redirect if you should choose to do that.
I'm not gonna use that audio CD because it does, but that portion of it I think needs to be clarified, because she's misrepresenting to the jury what he actually said. What he actually said is they're trying to differentiate which female attorneys here at counsel's table he is talking about. And then
All right, so that is something for you to clear up on redirect if you so choose.
I can't clear it up without using the CD, and me using the CD opens it up to having the state using the entirety of the CD.
All right,
It's
so-
contradicting itself.